Yes. Welcome to Satsang. Welcome to the friends that are here in person, and welcome to all the friends that are joining us online tonight. For some of you this morning. I'm always looking forward to this time together. It's such a beautiful excuse to stop everything and just to be here, to not look for anything else than what is here, and to share this, whatever we call it, maybe we call it space, atmosphere, blessings, presence, with all of you. This is the most important step we can do every day, and if possible every moment, to just be here and to watch how life has its own incredible wisdom. Life moves us this moment. Often mind moves us, and mind can only repeat the past. Mind is a story. There's nothing wrong with it. It's beautiful. We love stories. We read books and watch movies and TV just because we enjoy the story. And what we often miss is that there must be someone behind the story or before the story that is witnessing the story. And that someone is you and me. Is it complicated? No. It's totally obvious. That's why most of humanity overlooks that. So I feel very, very privileged to again and again remind all of us, because that reminds me, the big me, the presence me, that whatever I've been looking for within the mind is already here beyond the mind. Can you relate to that? Yeah. And then there's just millions of different ways to point to that simple understanding. We've been exploring Tantra, the Supreme Understanding, my favorite book from Osho. Of course, there are many favorite ones, but this one is so telegraphic. It's like a telegram of truth, spoken I don't know how many 100 years ago by Tilopa when he was singing the song of Mahamudra, the song of infinite expansion into oneness. And the reminder is always that even the word expansion appears like a movement from here to something bigger, but that which is aware is already infinite. We cannot grasp it, this is why we overlook it. We cannot grasp infinity. We cannot define infinity. We cannot objectify infinity. And yet if we just be still for a moment, suddenly we're here. We've always been here. We were just distracted or occupied by the mind and the things to do. And yet one moment of silence and we disappear as a separate person. And the amazing thing is that that disappearance may be the same experience for the friends who are watching us online, on Facebook Live, and for the friends here, and for the birds, and for the animals, and for the nature, and for everything. Everything is held in the witness. Now, of course, you're going to argue, well, does a flower has the capacity to witness? Well, we don't know. Do animals have the capacity to witness? Perhaps a little bit more than the human being. But if we really go to the core, to the source of witnessing, that space holds every form. When I talk about this often, behind the words is this experience of this room, for example. This room has walls and ceiling and floor, and there's people in it. But is that room limited by the walls or the ceiling or the floor or the people? It's not limited. It holds whatever appears in this room, and it holds everything else also. So every manifestation of form is held in the formless. Is it complicated? It's simple, no? It's like the sky is infinite, and it's impossible for our mind to comprehend that our innermost core of being is the sky. It's not personal anymore. It doesn't know separation. It doesn't know interpretation. It doesn't know judgment. It doesn't know labeling. It just is. And suddenly when we rest here, suddenly we hear the birds, all the other noises. We become aware of the breath. And everything continues. Life continues wonderfully. I almost said it continues without me, without the me. The me is not needed for life, because the me is just a labeling of fleeting experiences that come and go. It's not bad or wrong. So that's why we are here. At least, I don't know why you are here, but that's why I am here. And all the words are just kind of to help the mind to relax a little bit, so that which we truly are can reveal itself as who we always have been. Shall we have a look what Tilopa says to this? We are, I think, almost at the last sutra, or not quite. Oh yeah, it says the song ends, so that's the last sutra of my favorite book. The supreme understanding transcends all this and that. So the supreme understanding is what I'm trying to point towards, which we cannot really give a name to, because then we make a thing out of it. The supreme understanding is a space, no? And that space transcends all this and that, which means everything that manifests in space is transcended, because the attention in the supreme understanding is just on witnessing, nothing else. The supreme action embraces great resourcefulness without attachment. That is fantastic. So the supreme action, normally when we act with a certain agenda. We want to get from here to there, and we make an effort to get there. No? So that's the normal action. Most of our actions are goal-oriented, and they are basically a product of our mind that hopes that the next moment will deliver something better than this moment. No? You know, you wake up and first you're, blissfully unaware of any thoughts, and then thoughts come in, and then your mind tells you, I have to get up and make breakfast for the kids, and then I have to bring the kids to school, and then dang, 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 dang. There is have to and tasks that keep us in the idea that I am doing something to create a better moment later. Isn't it kind of a little bit mad? No? And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't act. It doesn't mean that. Action, we are alive beings. Everything is in movement. No? And we are creative beings. We're the most evolved expressions of consciousness, probably. I'm not sure, at least in this galaxy or on this earth. No? The human being is supposed to be so evolved. Really? If you listen to the politicians, that recent story between Monsieur Macron and Monsieur ScoMo. I mean, that's kids' play, isn't it? You stole my toys. Anyway, and I want to have a more powerful submarine so that I can, show my muscles. I mean, I don't want to go into politics. That's too much. But deeper than that, we are very, very evolved beings. We are basically consciousness in the most sophisticated form. But the supreme action embraces great resourcefulness without attachment. I think that's a very, very important piece. No? The supreme action is when you watch yourself doing something and you're totally present in the doing. There's no goal later. There may be a certain creative vision that you actually turn into action because it arises from a place of not knowing. And I'm sure every one of us has experienced that in moments, no? Where maybe you come up with an idea, then the mind wants to grab it and create a sense of me about it. And then eventually the mind relaxes and you find yourself doing things without agenda of the goal, without agenda of the success or failure at the end. Just the joy of doing what you're doing, whether it's gardening or whether it's solving a mathematical problem or whether it is holding your little child in your arms. It doesn't matter what you do. So the supreme action embraces great resourcefulness. This is what I often try to explain in my map of consciousness that can help us to recognize where we are, where in the upper circle we are in awareness of our inner emptiness, which we call Source. And then Source manifests itself through the 7 chakras, through the body and the first chakra, through our sexual energy. And we relax into it rather than make something out of it. In the second chakra, in the capacity to merge and melt with things and with people, and to be alone. And in the third chakra, to recognize the joy of being an individual. And in the fourth chakra, finding that natural compassion that we all are, and so on. And the natural creativity, which means our essential qualities. And all these are kind of a flowering of emptiness, which means the supreme action embraces great resourcefulness. These are our resources, our essences, without attachment. Why does he say without attachment? Because the moment we attach to an outcome, or the moment we even attach to an interpretation how good we are in this moment, we get identified. We think, it's me, I'm doing this. Look how great I am. And we are back a little kid of 6 or 7. Mama, can you see how good I am? That's relevant when we are kids. Absolutely, we need to develop that part of the ego. But eventually, things happen. If you watch a beautiful painter, and ask him what happened, he cannot tell you. He said, the painting happened. I'm just a vehicle, or a musician, or whatever else you do. So the supreme action embraces great resourcefulness without attachment, which means that's where our creativity can be alive without being attached to the outcome. Now, how can we remember that? There's many ways, of course. There's all these meditation techniques that can point you towards this. Or in moments where you just stop for a second and put your intention not on the outcome, but on that which is aware. And for me, that's often the question, well, who is aware of this? The moment I ask, I'm sitting here and talking to you, who is aware of this? My answer would be, well, I am. What is this I? Has anybody ever found an object that we can call I? Suddenly, the I returns into its original understanding that I is pure space, is pure awareness, is pure love, is pure joy, is pure bliss. It's all that stuff that the mind is looking for later. And he continues, the supreme accomplishment is to realize immanence without hope. That sounds complicated. Huh? Okay, the supreme accomplishment, what we actually can manage to create, for example, is to realize immanence without hope, which means we realize what we have created without any idea of the future. Hope is usually connected with an idea that it could be better, or hope that I wouldn't fail, or hope that I get recognition through what I've been doing, or hope for more success. No? The supreme accomplishment, when, usually, I don't know about you, but I used to run trekking and meditation courses in Nepal, and we usually had a peak in mind. And either the Kalapata, the Everest base camp, is a peak, or Gokyo Peak is the first 5,000 meter mountain that I climbed, or Mera Peak. So there's always, like an arduous, strenuous effort, which we enjoyed very much, of course, to a certain extent. And then it was so beautiful because some of the group members were too exhausted and they were hating me, or hating the whole trip for moments because they were just exhausted. And then they had a little nap, and then they were absolutely ravished by the beautiful mountains, so up and down and all around. And then when we finally got to the peak, how long can you stay on a peak? In the Himalayas, not very long, because it's very, very cold, especially when you're above 5,000 meters. Then you need to move again. But the mind takes this as an amazing accomplishment, and and shares with family and friends, and look how great I am, and look how high I climbed, and so on. So the supreme accomplishment is to realize imminence without hope. So that's what is. But the moment we take a step down the peak, it's finished. It's only that which is. And then there's no hope unless the mind comes in and says, oh, now we did this peak, we have to do the next one. No? So then he describes this in a way that says, in a way, the same thing, but in a different metaphor. At first, a yogi feels his mind tumbling like a waterfall. So we are the yogis, no? In mid-course, like the Ganges, it flows on slow and gentle. In the end, it is a great, vast ocean where the lights of sun and mother merge into one. So this is basically our journey. No? When we start the journey, I don't know about you, but when I started my journey, there were already many great accomplishments. And then, when I met Osho, it looked like there's a new accomplishment to be realized, which is the famous enlightenment. So then, everything, all the energy goes into, at least with Osho, it was going into therapy and meditation and practice and doing as much as possible practice, because the mind thought, if I do as much as possible, I will reach. And this is kind of like the waterfall that kind of cannot wait. It needs to be fast and intense and full on. So that's the first step of a yogi. A yogi feels his mind tumbling like a waterfall. So there are glimpses where there is no mind, and the mind comes back in revenge. Anybody had that? Where it's, you have a moment, a glimpse of the infinite, and the mind immediately grabs it and says, hey, I got it. And then the next moment you are so scared, because then you don't know anymore who you are, and all your definitions don't work anymore. And it was so comfortable when you knew who you are and where you belong and who is your family and what is your name. And all that becomes irrelevant. Really? Do I really want that? Can you relate to that? I mean, it sounds nice, but what is enlightenment? It just means I am not there, so who can enjoy it? Really? Maybe I should go back to the West. So that's where we feel the mind is tumbling like a waterfall. There's nothing to hold on to. We cannot, it's such an intensity. And at the beginning, when I look back at the time with Osho, in 1980, Pune 1 was so intense. We were doing all these meditations and day and night and processes and groups and encounter and expressing our rage and our sexuality and our power. And it was the biggest marketplace you can imagine. Much more concentrated than the normal marketplace. But we thought we are on a spiritual journey. And Osho kept saying, well, this is all an excuse. The real work is meditation. So whatever you do is just to keep your mind busy so that I can reach you in presence and meditation. At that time, I had no clue. I had so many ideas and ideals of all the things that you have to do to finally realize yourself. So, the mind is tumbling like a waterfall in mid-course. Oh, no, at first. And in mid-course, it flows like the Ganges. It's interesting when I look at this in a parallel to the development of the commune around Osho. It was pretty much the same thing. Like when Osho went to the ranch, suddenly everything changed and we were kind of more into silent meditation. And in Pune too, more things changed. We were more and more into silent meditations and into just working in the ashram. So in mid-course, we flow like the Ganges, like very softly, deeper, and perhaps we meet people that have maybe already made a step beyond their egoic identity, at least in moments, and you get a sense, that could be it. And the focus, I think what is most important is that the focus is not anymore on becoming, but in being present to every experience, every moment. Now, I would say, I'm not there yet. But often, often this is what's happening. And then often it's not what's happening. I'm not always present to that which is aware. And I feel I don't have to, because that which is aware is always here. This is, I think, the biggest shift from the waterfall to the Ganges was, but what is always here? It's the same water. Whether it, consciousness, it's the same. It just, the expression, maybe it's also just age. The expression slows down. Who knows? And in the end, it is a great, vast ocean where the lights of sun and mother, sun, kind of the child, sun and mother merge into one. That merging is so simple that I met a few people that have completely overlooked that they're already pretty much merged. Because it's so simple. Life is just happening by itself, like waves on the top of the ocean. But the ocean, the infinity, is always here. And what he calls the lights of sun and mother merge into one is like that which was kind of growing up towards awareness, and that which is already awareness that welcomes the growing up, that becomes one. Does it make any sense? It's like suddenly there is this infinite vastness, and yes, my guess is as long as consciousness manifests through this body-mind, there is a certain amount of ego. But not a bad or good ego, not something that you should fight. It is just, we are living in a world where you need some money, where you need a home, you need a house, or you need food. So you need to kind of take care of this wonderful body, even though you know you're not the body. Even you know you're not your feelings and not your emotions and not your mind and not your thoughts and not your beliefs and not your identities. That knowing, there is a moment, I call it one of the moments of awakening. There's a moment where this knowing doesn't leave you, and yet the ego structure kind of moves itself to its own end, and you don't need to be concerned, because your attention is more and more on that which is aware, on that space. Now, in the end, it is a great, vast ocean where the lights of sun and mother merge into one. I love it that he calls it the light, because in a way, when consciousness becomes aware of itself, there is some kind of sense of light. That's why probably people called it enlightenment. Because, the closest I could relate to this many years ago is when in Pune 2, Osho had his discourses for many months in the, I think it's called Chuan Tzu Auditorium or Lao Tzu Auditorium, I can't remember. Anyway, it's a smaller auditorium. And there was a corridor where Osho needed to walk through and come out to his chair. And every one of us saw the corridor light up before Osho actually appeared. And at first I thought somebody switches the light on, but nobody switched anything on. It was just the presence of emptiness of this man was already so strong that it appeared as light, but not so much as a, it's very hard to describe. It's that light, if you ever have done darkness meditation, you sit in deepest darkness and you realize you see everything. Try it, but you need to sit for a while. So when mother and son become one, we could interpret it in a little different way, that when we are born completely free. Consciousness is absolutely free. Nothing is fixed. Even a newborn baby's eyes, have you watched that? It floats freely. It's not focused on an outward object. If at all, it absorbs the visual impressions without choosing or interpreting or labeling or whatever we do. And later, as we grow up, actually, I would almost say we grow down, we don't grow up. We do all these impossible efforts to create a better ego, a stronger ego. And then comes the reverse journey. And eventually, if we are lucky, we touch a glimpse of freedom before we die. Most people die deeply unhappy and identified. And perhaps we have a chance and can look forward to when the body leaves us. It's not we are leaving the body. Is there someone asking a question? Okay.
Ragba Kandro.
Kandro?
Kandro.
Okay. Hi, Kandro.
Are most actors in a way enlightened because they know there isn't a fixed character in them? Are most actors in a way enlightened because they know there isn't a fixed character in them?
Well, really? I remember Osho talked about the beautiful thing about being an actor is that you know you're playing a role. No? But unfortunately, especially when you're a very famous actor, it's very hard not to identify with all the praise and all the fame and all the money and all the wonderful things you come as a byproduct. So my guess is actors are not necessarily enlightened, even though have you seen that movie Being There? Yeah? John C. Gardner. What's the name of the actor again? Anyway. Yeah. Peter Sellers. No? I mean, what he played there was much more than a play. So who knows? Maybe some actors really have disidentified completely. No? But it's a beautiful step. No? I would recommend. Osho talked about the little guy Siddhartha. He was a kind of a small baby when he came to Pune, and he grew up and he became, I don't know how well known an actor. And he came back to Pune to say hello to Osho, and Osho talked about this, how beautiful it is to learn acting because you're freely moving from one personality to the other, and you know you are playing a role. And if we get a little bit more conscious, we know that any of our professions is a role. It gets very weird, for example, when your husband is a lawyer and he thinks that's who he is, and then he comes into the bedroom with his wife and is still a lawyer and kind of creates a case out of your intimate relationship. According to the law, you have to put this thing here to have this and this result. So yes and no, dear Khandro, I wouldn't say every actor is enlightened, but there is a beautiful chance if the actor is also interested in meditation. Because then even being an actor can be an identification. And then we want to be a good actor, and then we are more identified. And then we get bad reviews, and then we are really angry because we don't feel seen, and then the whole game of, looking for attention and avoiding rejection continues. No? So that's why many actors also kind of have quite strong mental difficulties, because if your attention is outside and you get so much recognition and you don't know who you are inside, it can be very, very challenging. So there's a lot of depression also. But I don't know about you, Khandro. Are you an actor? Are you aware of that which is aware in you? And for some of us, this is a small step, because somehow consciousness has evolved so much. And for some of us, it's a gradual journey, a gradual undoing, a gradual.
He says, I am becoming one, I think.
Sorry?
Kendra says, I am becoming one.
Very.
Going to acting school.
Oh, you're becoming one. So enjoy. Now, you see, whatever I'm talking about can also be misunderstood. Because don't we love stories with heroes? No? And don't we love stories where we actually can identify with the villain or the hero? And we are so caught in the movie that we completely forget that nothing ever happens and you were just sitting in that movie chair. So there's nothing wrong in that. But if while you're watching a movie in a cinema or a TV, if you sometimes remember the watcher and you realize you can watch the one that watches the movie. Does that ever happen to you? It's like, oh. And then you can zoom back into the identification because it's so much fun. Especially when there's a happy end and the hero wins. The hero usually gets the girl, or the girl gets the boy. Very good. I think we should sit with that a little bit. So, if it's okay with you, I'm going to just guide us a little bit into our inner space. You can sit comfortably with your spine upright. relaxed, letting go of whatever has been spoken, that which needed to be understood has been understood. And to bring that light even into the physical, I want to dedicate the light of the candle today to that amazing capacity of witnessing. And as we're sitting here, we can perhaps take a few very deep conscious breaths, just breathing in deeply and breathing out deeply. One more time, deep in-breath and deep out-breath. One more time. Deep in-breath and letting go. And then just allow your relaxed attention to be with the breath. This is one of the oldest meditation techniques. Why watching the breath? Because the breath is flowing. If we stop, we die. So the breath is life, and life exists between and within the in and out breath. Both are equally important. And that is a beautiful recognition that we can witness the breath, or let's say when we are aware of the breath, we are witnessing. And we're witnessing in and out, which when we translate that inside, we can witness good and bad. We can witness right and wrong. We can witness high and low. We can witness all these movements of the person, of the personality. And many movements move between the two polarities, between good and bad. And when good and bad have the same value, the same function, the same expression, the same intensity, then these two poles can reveal the witnessing space that holds both. So just feel your breath. And you may feel that with each out-breath, we are sinking a little bit deeper inside. With each in-breath, we are expanding. At least the physical body expands, the chest, the belly. Each out-breath we're letting go deeper inside. Meditation is the only non-activity, the only space that has no goal. It is a space where we can allow everything to be as it is, even our thoughts. There may be many conflicting thoughts in the mind, and that which is aware holds all the conflicts tenderly in its open space. And in a way, from this perspective, all polarities collapse. Into presence, into silence. And the place that is perhaps the most easy to experience that dissolution of polarities is in the heart. So you may, for a moment, move your attention to the heart. Because wherever our attention goes is where our energy flows. And that energy flow is witnessed right now. In breathing in and breathing out. And perhaps we find that each out-breath takes us even deeper into the unknown, inward. And slowly, slowly, it takes us deeper than objective experiences, which means deeper than thoughts. Thoughts can be seen, and presence or awareness is deeper than thought. And deeper than feeling. And of course, thought and feeling can continue. They are like clouds moving in the sky. And deeper than body sensations. And body continues. And deeper than the breath. And breath continues. And deeper than the heartbeat. And heartbeat continues. And deeper than all experiences. When we ask ourselves, well, who or what am I deeper then all experiences there is no answer. The moment we would label it, it would be an answer. It would be creating an object out of nothingness. Let's sit in this for a while as we allow each out-breath to take us even deeper. We're going to sit for about 15 minutes. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. And sharing this deep place, the deep space with all the friends that are joining us today, in person and online. No difference. Rest as this natural peace. Feel this silence. Feel this peace behind all turmoil. Feel the space that holds all experience. So simple, so direct. Perhaps get a sense that this is always here, behind all action, behind all objects, behind all thoughts. This I am is always here. It's not created. It cannot disappear. Feel that for a moment. I am always here. That is what is described in the Bible with the burning bush that says, I am that I am. It's such a mystery. It may appear empty, but it is full of grace, full of blessings, full of healing. And from the depths inside, we can take a deeper breath. Gently becoming aware of the body again. And staying aware of that which is aware of the body. And maybe a little movement, a little stretch. Another deeper breath. Until you find a good moment to allow your eyes to open to a brand new moment here. Yes. Anything you would like to say or share or ask? And this is an invitation also, of course, to the friends who are with me online on Facebook Live. Just feel free. I personally feel totally blessed by just sitting with you all, in form, without form, in the body, without the body. We are sharing a field. Tilopa called it, in the end, it is a great vast ocean where the lights of sun and mother merge into one. Here we are, one.
Rahasya. When we go into that space, there is no problem.
When we go into that space, there is no problem.
There's so many videos I watched today on what's happening around the world. And then we're talking in the car on the way over. And I said, well, we're chatting about all this crazy stuff. I said, well, and then we'll come to Rahasya's and then it'll all disappear for a few hours. So is it real?
For the friends who didn't hear what Steve was saying, he said, you know, when we're in this space here, there's no problem. And when he was coming with his friend in the car, speaking about all the stories and all the chaos and all the things that are happening in the world, and then we come here and suddenly there's no problem. So what is real? Is it real? What is more real? Is that where we effortlessly melt into? Is that real? Or is that real, which is a constantly changing story that creates more and more identification, more and more fear, more and more insecurity, more and more anxiety, more and more survival, stress. What is real? I would say, stop for a moment, and whatever stays when everything else falls away, that is real. All the other things are just like, like different shaped clouds in the empty sky. Now, from that perspective now, I think most of us can agree. No? And then comes another moment where the radio and the news and the TV and the story and your partner and many things come together, and the mind attaches to it and believes that this is who I am. And yet the supreme understanding transcends all this and that. Amazing, no? I don't know how many hundreds of years Tilopa spoke this. This and that transcended is what we are sharing here. It's timeless. That's why Tilopa is as contemporary as we are. The supreme action embraces great resourcefulness without attachment. How much does our mind loves to attach and argue and fight and prove, no? And even in our spiritual community called Malambimbi, there is so much division.
Now the preparing for whatever, just to be safe.
A lot of preparation just to be safe, forgetting completely that the very essence of life and the beauty of life is that it's insecure. There's nothing stable in life. You just know this when you wake up and you go to the mirror and you find more wrinkles in your face. But it's not bad. I think the contrast gets more. No? The madness outside is in deeper contrast to the space that we share here. And I'm not saying the space is better. The space is always here. It's just our attention gets kidnapped. And the more dramatic the kidnapper is, the more we fall into the trap. And our mind wants to know what is good and bad and what is right and wrong. And how shall I treat my body and so on. And on a relative level, it's intelligent to allow the supreme action that embraces great resourcefulness without attachment. We are incredibly resourceful. Science is incredible. There's so many things that can support, a more conscious life. But on that level, our freedom is probably the greatest prison. Because we are free to suffer. We are free to argue. We are free to resist. We are free to fight. We are free to complain. We are free to judge. We are free to whatever we do. and ultimately we are free as beings, as timeless, beginningless, endless beings. When I say it, my mind cannot grasp it. No mind can grasp it. And yet, isn't it so much more real than all the stories? And then, of course, we have a prayer, at least I have a prayer. When the body leaves, can I be awake enough?
There's a question.
There's a question.
From Camilla Roseanne.
Camilla, yes.
How can I reach this state of how can I reach this state of effortlessly earn a living? How can I reach this state effortlessly earn a living?
Well, your very question is already the dilemma. No? Your very question is mentioning a goal, it's mentioning a hope, it's mentioning a state of the moment that your mind may interpret as lack. No? How can I reach a state where I can be relaxed and make money? You can't. Sorry. Because you're mixing consciousness with the content of consciousness. The paradox is you and all of us, everyone in their own unique way, is born as incredible potential with so many gifts, and everyone's gifts are different. And what the society has created, it's probably the great game of illusion, is that for many of us, we think we are not gifted enough to make a living. Even though we all make a living, at least the people here, and at least, a big piece of humanity knows how to make a living through the skills that, we have learned, and through the skills that we are born with, through the essential qualities that are inbuilt in the program of being human. We have an alive body. If we take care, the body stays healthy. We have an alive capacity to feel ourselves and each other. And when we allow that feeling creates a connection. And so on. We could go through all the chakras with all the essential qualities that are already there and that can be supported. If I look at myself, I had similar questions because at least when I was younger, money was always very scarce. But I knew somehow through grace that whatever I'm doing, I want to live, I want to work and do something that I really love, whether it gives me money or not. It needs to give me money because otherwise I cannot do it. And somehow that worked. If I look back, I lived an incredibly rich life without much money. When we left the commune in Pune, I was already over 40. and all I owned was a suitcase. And of course my friends said, come on, you're a doctor and you should be famous and you should make money and you should. And somehow existence supported what I really love, which is, sharing with people and helping people to move beyond suffering, first through the body as a doctor and then through a therapist. So it's possible, but the very start that you share is already a trap, because the trap is there's a belief in your own lack, that you're missing something that needs to first be fulfilled before you can rest as consciousness. And that's a big misunderstanding that mixes presence and consciousness with the content of consciousness. And the content of consciousness in this case is our personality and our gifts and our limitations and our belief system. And unfortunately, most of us have created an identity through what we believe to be true. And we will fight for it for dear life, never realizing that a belief is not the truth. Every belief carries a doubt. So it's still a duality. But a belief, gives you an identity. If you look at all the wars around the world, there are belief wars. It's like countries, Christian countries against Muslim countries, Hindu countries against Muslim countries. I mean, all this is not people, is not human beings, it's thoughts, it's beliefs that create the conflict. And on a personal level, perhaps you may have to look that you believe in the fact that you're lacking something. Or there's a belief if you are present as choiceless awareness, you may not be able to make money. This is an intrinsic belief of many, many spiritual seekers. That in India, we should all go to India then, because in India, even when you don't do anything and you sit on top of a mountain, people come and pray to you and feed you. Here it's not possible. Here you need to allow the skills of your body-mind to express themselves in the joy of being an active, alive person. And there is infinite ways to make money if you step out of your beliefs. So the very trap you're in is that you believe that you are in lack. Is that true? And in this way, the energy of lack, unfortunately, if it is not investigated, when we are not totally present to it, we create more lack. This is why it's very helpful to investigate into the truth of your belief that you're lacking something. And the deeper you go within, you are bound to find that who you truly are is held in oneness, held in fulfillment. You are already fulfilled. Now, when I talk about it, we can create a new belief about that. But then it's a spiritual belief and it doesn't help. But if you stop for a while, like we've been stopping now, just, not much, 20 minutes. Is there any lack? Is there anything missing? And then coming out from that, perhaps we again move, you guys will move into the car and drive home, and maybe suddenly you have a brilliant idea that comes from that fulfillment if you need to make some money. And that is an energy that attracts more fullness. This is a kind of a simplified version of the law of attraction, which kind of is used and misused in many teachings in the moment. But how to say this, when we recognize that this whole existence is supporting us, maybe not the way we want, but maybe the way we need. And that creates a field of trust where even if you don't have money and you are in trust, things happen. Things happen not when you want them to happen, when you relax more and more into the isness of now and allow, like in the Sufi story, allow yourself to tie the camel first. If you don't tie the camels run away. What does it mean, tie the camel? Take a risk, step over the limited belief system that you cannot make money. Take a risk, step into what you really love. When we left the commune, we had really very, very little money, Nura, my wife and me, and we had a little kid. And we were renting one room in a little apartment in Cologne, and that room we shared, the three of us. During the day it was a session room. In the evening Nura was going around Cologne in a beautiful red coat with a beautiful big bunch of flowers, and she was selling roses in cafes. That was kind of our beginning of business. And I have no idea not suddenly, but out of this first idea of how to make a little bit of a living, from the first rose money, we bought an electronic typewriter and wrote a program meditation in the Alps. And then we found a hut, and then we brought a few people there, and so on. I mean, the story is incredible. If I look back that it was possible, then at a certain point we were feeling, what do we want to do that we only could do with money? For example, we wanted to go sailing. So let's have a sailing and meditation course. Then you have to jump, because we had to borrow money to pay the deposit for a sailing boat to charter. And we didn't know if we can get any clients. But we got clients. And so on, and so on, and so on. So, but start with investigating and exploring the experience of lack. Don't fight it, don't judge it, don't, try to change it, but penetrate it. Let your consciousness penetrate into what the mind calls lack and see whether it's true. And you will find perhaps at first the lack appears like a deep black hole that is infinite and you would never able to fill it. Then enter that hole. Be that. Even if you're trembling, enter the darkness of a negative nothingness and you will be surprised. I'm not going to talk further because otherwise you create hope. Hope is hopeless. What is wins. Your inner state wins. And as the deeper you go, there is a promise. The promise is from all the masters and all the beings that have recognized themselves. It's the only reality you can find is your true nature. Just you need to go deep enough. I don't know if that helps. Yeah.
Follow-up question. Maria Paz.
Maria.
Talking about lack. Is it the energy of lack or primal creative energy attached to the idea of lack?
Maria Paz, that's an intellectual question. My mind cannot follow that one. Because you try to analyze consciousness. You try to analyze. Can you tell me the question again?
Is it the energy of lack or primal creative energy attached to the idea of lack?
I don't know. I have no answer to that. Because, with that question, we start analyzing what is lack. Well, lack is simply a conglomeration of experiences connected with a certain belief system and thought. And within the thought, there is no solution. The solution is within the courage to experience what is, not just as a thought, but as an experience, as a feeling, as an embodiment, as a state of negative blackness. I call it the void. Some people call it the darkness of the soul, the dark night of the soul. Whatever we call it, that which is inescapable when we enter and we move beyond identity, beyond what we knew we are. We are bound to have to touch what I call void, and it appears negative. It appears like total hopelessness. And many of those awakened beings have experienced that. Look at Jesus as the best example. I mean, he's hanging on the cross, still fighting. My God, why have you forsaken me? And then he let go. He let go into the absolute impossibility of his experience. I'm hanging on the cross. It hurts like hell. They have opened my, with a spear my side. I'm going to die, and I'm still thinking this God that I was preaching about comes and miraculously takes me off. No, he doesn't. You're total in the hopeless situation of deep blackness, and suddenly there is the light. I shouldn't have said that, otherwise you try hoping. Okay. Sorry, Maria. I love you anyway. So, I cannot answer your question. But if there's lack, experience it. And see the illusion of it. See the lie of it. Is there a lack? Your heart, how many years? Maybe 50, 60 years? Is beating without you or with you. It just kind of keeps on living you. Is there a lack? Breath moves in and out, whether you remember it or not. If it would be dependent on your remembrance, you would all be dead. Who is living you? Breath is living you. Breath is breathing you, and so on. Look at this body. You know, you cut yourself and you don't do anything and the cut heals. If that's not abundance, I don't know what abundance is, and everything else is a bonus on top of it. Ne? Thank you, beloveds. Thank you for your questions. Please don't feel offended. I just love your questions. At least then I have something to say. So we see you again next Friday, if you like. No? Thank you so much for sharing this space. Namaste. Namaste.